Some lives cross time and distance and never quite leave you. This is a tribute from Hollywood, where we honor American stars we've lost alongside unforgettable voices from around the world. If these tributes mean something to you, your gentle support helps keep these stories alive for those who need them. There are certain voices you never truly prepare to lose. And then one morning, the world is quieter without them. John Sterling has left us at 87. He wasn't merely a broadcaster, he turned baseball into something you could feel. He gave it texture, cadence, and a personality entirely his own. Sometimes theatrical, sometimes perfectly timed, always unmistakably him. The news spread the way it always does among real fans, quietly, person to person, like a whisper through stadium corridors on a warm July night that if you followed the New York Yankees any time after the late 80s, that voice was simply part of your life. 1989 doesn't feel like history until suddenly it's 4 decades behind you, and Sterling was there through every inning of it. Over 5,000 consecutive broadcasts. That isn't a career statistic. That's a relationship. A man who showed up, season after season, through dynasties and disappointments, through late October miracles and early April heartbreaks. The 90s championship years. The crack of the bat. The crowd surging to its feet. And then Sterling, always with something signature ready, occasionally over the top, occasionally exactly right, but never anyone else's. Off the air, people who knew him spoke of a man of real discipline. Prepared. Professional. Quiet about it. You don't build a streak like that without something deeply steady at your core. And now that voice joins memory. It's a strange thing. You think you're just listening to a ball game on the radio. Years down the road, you understand you were listening to your own life going by, one slow summer inning at a time. Joe Ely has passed at 78. He was born in Amarillo, back when radio still felt like something intimate, something that came right into the room with you. To the people who followed his work, he was never just a name on a screen. He felt known somehow, the kind of presence you absorb over years without ever quite realizing how much of your inner landscape he helped shape. The news arrived simply, without spectacle. A quiet acknowledgement that a life lived steadily on its own terms had ended in Taos, a fitting place, somehow. Wide skies. A silence that carries more weight than words. If you cast your mind back to the late 60s and through the 70s, that restless era when America felt like it was being remade from the ground up, Joe was woven into that fabric. Not always in the foreground, but consistent, reliable, the kind of presence people trusted without needing to articulate why. There's always what the public doesn't see. The long miles, the missed occasions, the effort required to keep showing up when the spotlight has moved on. People who were close to him often described a man who had no interest in chasing noise. He kept things grounded. He kept things honest. That means something. And now his name settles into something softer, a memory anchored to a place, a particular sound, a feeling from a specific chapter of life. That's how it always goes. You never catch the precise moment the present becomes the past. Doris F. Pfizer has passed at 94. Her name didn't often appear in bold type, yet somehow it ended up quietly woven into everyday life across an entire nation. Subtle influence, the kind that outlasts headlines. The news landed with a sense of settledness. A long life, yes, but that changes nothing about the weight of it, not when you consider how much of ordinary American life she helped shape. In 1969, she and Donald Fisher opened the very first Gap store, not yet an institution, just a notion born from a simple frustration, the near impossibility of finding a well-fitting pair of jeans. And from that small irritation, something enormous grew. By the 70s and 80s, Gap had become part of the American visual landscape, in malls, on main streets, walked through by millions who never gave it a second thought. That effortlessness was the achievement. Behind it lived discipline, taste, and restraint. Doris understood something subtle and true about people. They want to feel at ease in their own skin, but they also want to feel noticed. Threading that needle consistently is far more difficult than it appears. And then there's the side of her fewer people discuss, her commitment to the arts, to museums and collections, to preserving cultural history long before that became fashionable. Now her name moves from present tense to past. It's a strange thing, spending a life building spaces and ideas that people move through without pausing to wonder who imagined them. She's no longer here. But the feelings she helped put into the world, that remains exactly where she left it. Burt Bacharach has passed at 94. A quiet giant of American music. Understated, never showy, and yet absolutely everywhere once you learned how to listen. The news carried a particular kind of heaviness. His songs had already been living inside people's lives for so long that it felt almost impossible to imagine him not being somewhere behind the music, still at the piano. Go back to the 1960s. Radio humming in the background of a kitchen. A night drive down an empty highway. Voices like Dionne Warwick carrying melodies that felt elegant but were never simple. Walk on by. I Say a Little Prayer. These weren't just chart successes, they were architecture. Unexpected harmonic turns. Time signatures that shifted just slightly beyond what you expected. Phrases that stretched a breath longer than the rules allowed. And yet everything felt natural, inevitable, as though he had simply listened more closely than anyone else to how emotion actually moves through a person. The industry recognized him, Grammys, Oscars, formal acknowledgement across decades. But that isn't what people carry with them. What they carry is a place, a person beside them, a version of themselves they haven't been in years, all of it brought back by 4 bars of something he wrote half a century ago. He wasn't chasing attention off stage. He was chasing the work, the detail, the next phrase. That kind of discipline doesn't announce itself. And now the music continues without him. Still finding new people, still landing in the same tender places. Some songs, it turns out, don't age the way their creators do. Kevin Cronin didn't come from chaos. He was raised in Evanston, Illinois, a quiet surface over something more complicated. Born October 6, 1951. Middle America. Sunday mornings. Structure, expectation, a certain prescribed way of moving through the world. His father was a classical musician, and that left a mark deeper than most people understand. Discipline arrived early. Music wasn't recreation, it was rigor, repetition, refinement. But Kevin didn't fit cleanly inside that frame. He was sensitive, a bit inward-looking, the kind of boy who felt things before he had language for them. Music slowly shifted from a set of rules into something else entirely, a place to disappear into. His high school years passed in a kind of productive uncertainty. He wasn't the loudest presence in any room, not the most self-assured. But something was accumulating underneath, quietly gathering force. Then rock music found him. Raw, imperfect, electrically alive. It didn't demand perfection. It demanded honesty. That distinction changed the direction of everything. When he joined REO Speedwagon in the early 1970s, there was no storybook beginning. Things fell apart quickly. The pressure exceeded what he could hold at the time. The expectations grew heavier than he knew how to carry. And then he left, not from indifference, but from genuine uncertainty about whether he could survive the weight of it. That chapter tends to get edited out. The self-doubt. The silence after walking away. The particular feeling of watching something slip through your hands before it fully forms. He went back to school. Attempted ordinary life. But it no longer fit. Once you've reached towards something larger than yourself, ordinary life has a way of feeling borrowed. And somewhere in that quiet period of withdrawal, something inside him solidified, not arrogance, resolve. Because when Kevin returned, he was not the same young man. He had something to settle, not with anyone else. With himself. When Kevin Cronin rejoined REO Speedwagon in 1976, there was nothing triumphant about it. It felt precarious, the kind of thing that could dissolve again with one wrong step. He carried more weight now. More patience. Something quieter but harder. They kept touring. Small rooms. Long interstate drives. Nights that blurred into gray mornings. Nothing about it was glamorous. Not yet. Then 1978 arrived. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish, a peculiar title, but something turned. Not completely. Just enough to register. Still, the real shift hadn't come. It came in 1980. High infidelity. No one standing in that studio understood what they were making. Albums rarely announce themselves that way. They find their audience slowly, and then all at once. Keep on Loving You wasn't enormous or theatrical. It was honest. Maybe that's precisely why it worked. Kevin didn't perform it like a man at the height of his powers. He sang it like someone who had already lost something irreplaceable once and was not willing to let it happen again. It reached number 1 in 1981. And with that, the landscape changed entirely, the arenas, the lights, the pressure returning, but this time he stood inside it differently. Take It on the Run. Another piece of himself released into the world. But behind all of it, real life continued its quieter motion. In 1992, Kevin married Lisa Wells. She became his anchor. Not the recognition, not the applause, her. By then he'd learned what he hadn't known before: success doesn't stabilize you. People do. And even at the peak of everything, the doubts never fully cleared. The old fear of losing it again never entirely left. When you've already walked away once, you never completely forget how close you came to simply vanishing. Fame didn't resolve anything in Kevin Cronin. It amplified everything. By the mid-1980s, REO Speedwagon was omnipresent. Tours stacked on tour. Cities dissolved into each other. A different crowd each night, the same applause, and somehow that made it feel less personal, not more. Underneath the momentum, something quieter was eroding. Fatigue, not the kind that sleep addresses. The kind that comes from sustaining a performance of yourself for years at a stretch. From being, night after night, the voice people drove an hour to hear. Kevin felt it accumulating. He didn't always put it into words. Men of his generation, in that world especially, rarely did. You kept moving. You showed up. You smiled. But the cracks come regardless. There were private moments, small and unwitnessed, when the old doubt resurfaced, older now, more layered. Was this still something genuine, or had it become habit? The band changed shape over time. Members cycled. The industry rotated toward newer faces, newer sounds. The spotlight moved. That hits differently than failure. It's more like being gradually displaced from the center of something you once defined. He could have disappeared quietly in that chapter. Many did. But Kevin didn't. He kept showing up, not to chase relevance, but because he had built something real and he intended to honor it. That takes a different category of strength. Not the kind people applaud. The kind that operates in empty rooms when no one is keeping score. And now, looking at Kevin Cronin today, the picture has changed, not diminished, just sharpened. He still walks onto stages. Still sings the songs people have been carrying for decades. Keep on Loving You no longer belongs to a single moment, it belongs to lifetimes. To marriages, to long drives home, to late nights and early mornings and everything in between. Kevin knows that. You can see it in how he holds himself now. Less urgency, more presence. Time has a way of stripping away the need to prove things, while leaving the meaning completely intact. REO Speedwagon has kept touring well into the 2000s and beyond, not chasing charts, just showing up for the people who never left. There's something deeply human in that exchange. In interviews over the years, Kevin has spoken more openly about faith, about gratitude, about how fragile the whole thing really is. Life opened him up. Or perhaps it revealed what was already there underneath everything else. He talks more about family now, about Lisa, about the life constructed away from stage lights, the kind of life that doesn't require applause to feel whole. The voice has changed, naturally. Age and experience do that. But there's something living inside it now that wasn't there before. A kind of earned truth. Not polished, not carefully assembled, just lived in. And maybe that's what people are actually hearing when they listen today. Not only the songs. The years behind them. Kevin Cronin never became the loudest name in the room, never the most dramatic story. He became something more durable. Someone who stayed, through doubt, through shifting ground, through time. And he's still there. Not closing anything. Just continuing. Chuck Negron has passed at 83. For countless listeners, he wasn't simply a frontman, he was the voice that came through the radio in an era when rock music still felt genuinely unpredictable, still felt alive with real stakes. The news arrived with clinical clarity: heart failure, complications from COPD. Real and human causes. And somehow that specificity makes it land closer. If you were alive and listening in the late 60s and early 70s, Three Dog Night was simply part of the atmosphere. You didn't have to be a devoted fan, their songs were inescapable. Joy to the world. That opening line alone, impossible to dislodge from memory once it's there. It played at every kind of gathering, through car windows, out of transistor radios on hot summer afternoons. And at the center of all of it was Negron's voice, powerful without strain, present without force. But his story resisted simplicity. There were years of serious struggle, long after the hits receded, and he found his way back more than once. That part of his story matters more than any chart position ever did. People who encountered him in later years often described a transformed man, reflective, candid about the road he had traveled, not hiding from any of it. And now that voice belongs entirely to memory. That's the particular mystery of recorded music: you hear something decades later and you're suddenly back inside a specific moment, the same feeling, the same version of yourself. Only now you understand that the voice that put you there is gone. And yet it's still playing. Lee Allen Zeno has passed at 71. A Grammy-winning bassist from Louisiana. The kind of musician who never needed the front of the stage to matter, because his sound was already doing the essential work of holding everything together. The news followed a battle with cancer, shared quietly, without fanfare. The kind of announcement that travels through musicians first, then gradually reaches the fans who suddenly begin counting how many songs carried his fingerprints. If you've ever been moved by music rooted in the Acadiana region, that deep Louisiana blend of funk, zydeco, and soul, you've heard something shaped by what Zeno helped build. Never ornate, never competing for the spotlight. Just steady, warm, and precise, the kind of bassline that moves your body before your mind has registered why. Go back through the 80s, the 90s, and beyond. That regional sound didn't stay regional for long. It traveled outward, and musicians like him were part of that migration, working in studios, on stages most listeners won't find listed anywhere. But the music itself stuck. People who were close to him speak consistently of dedication, of craft taken seriously, of showing up fully prepared with no shortcuts taken, that old, increasingly rare respect for the music itself. And now that rhythm is stilled. You don't always notice what the bass is doing until it isn't there anymore. And then something in the music feels subtly different, like a room with one wall missing. The quiet ones. They leave the deepest echo.